I love the Olympics. I love the competition. I love that you can see sports that you don't normally see. I love the pageantry, the pomp and circumstance. I love the political intrigue. I love the Olympics. I also love national parks. And only one national park has ever even attempted to host the Olympics. Yosemite. Not that Yosemite. This one. That's right. Yosemite National Park attempted to host the Winter Olympic Games in 1932. Now, today, this simply wouldn't be possible. The Olympics have grown immensely since 1932. Back then, 17 countries competed in only 14 events, whereas the 2022 Beijing Games will host 84 countries in 109 events. The amount of infrastructure, people, and overall footprint of a modern Olympiad is simply incompatible with the way we currently manage national parks. For one thing, national parks aren't built to accommodate large events like this in such a short amount of time. America's busiest national park, Great Smoky Mountains, saw just over 1 million visitors in February 2018. Pyeongchang welcomed that many and more in just 2 weeks when it hosted the 2018 Games. Then there's the question of budget. Hosting the Olympics has become exorbitantly expensive since 1932. China has budgeted $3.9 billion for the 2022 Games, although actual costs are likely to run higher. That's also significantly lower than other recent winter host cities. South Korea spent almost $13 billion on the 2018 Pyeongchang Games, and Russia budgeted more than $50 billion on the 2014 Sochi Games. Compare that to the National Park Service, whose total appropriations for 2021 were just over $3 billion. That means the Park Service's budget for an entire year is still less than what Beijing will spend for a 2-week event. In short, hosting an Olympic Games is completely financially infeasible for the National Park Service. Most importantly, though, is the fact that national parks are meant to preserve and protect natural resources. The modern Olympic Games would almost certainly have a negative impact on the surrounding environment. From hotels to transportation to actual venues, there's just no way to host the Olympics today without significant infrastructure in place or a massive investment in building it. The physical footprint of a modern Olympic Games is completely antithetical to the Park Service's mission of preserving natural resources unimpeded for future generations. But let's forget all of that for a second and go back to a time when Yosemite National Park tried to host the Winter Olympics. Our journey begins in the Yosemite Valley in the mid-19th century. The area's scenic vistas and massive trees had been attracting visitors since the 1850s, but concerns about overdevelopment and commercialization prompted the federal government to look into protecting the area. In 1864, 8 years before the establishment of Yellowstone and a full 26 years before Yosemite became a national park, Abraham Lincoln signed the Yosemite Act, setting aside 39,000 acres for public use, resort, and recreation in the Yosemite Valley. With its new protected status, visitation to Yosemite soared, but the journey was arduous and it meant Yosemite could really only be enjoyed as a summer destination. The snow and ice of the high Sierras, combined with the lack of a dependable route to the park, inhibited most winter visitation to the valley for much of the 19th and early 20th centuries. Winter visitation was low, but it didn't mean it was non-existent. In 1916, the same year the Park Service itself was created, they opened an 800-foot snow slide in Curry Village. Dubbed Ash Can Alley, visitors would use trash can lids and cafeteria trays to slide down this new powder-filled playground in the heart of the Yosemite Valley. This was pretty much the beginning of winter recreation in Yosemite. But in 1924, winter sports would take a big step forward in the park. This is the year the all-weather highway opened, today known as Highway 140 and El Portal Road. Stephen Mather, the first director of the National Park Service, had always envisioned Yosemite as a, quote, winter as well as summer resort. And this new highway got him one step closer to that vision. The effect of the all-weather highway then was to make Yosemite a year-round destination. Even in the cold, snowy winter months of the Sierra Nevada, visitors could now access the park, and access they did. Once again, visitation to Yosemite National Park exploded, although winter still lagged far behind summer in this regard. What Yosemite needed was a marketing campaign. They needed something to say, "We're open for winter, come and visit." And what better way to do that than to host the Olympics? Yosemite's lead concessionaire, Don Tresidder, was the architect behind this plan. He had gone to the 1928 Winter Olympics in St. Moritz and wanted to turn Yosemite into the Switzerland of the West. He started the Yosemite Winter Club to advocate for more winter sports in the park, and in 1928, he started the Yosemite Ski School, the first of its kind anywhere on the West Coast. His efforts paid off too. Winter recreation took off in Yosemite. In Curry Village alone, sledding runs were built, the parking lot was flooded to construct an ice skating rink, and nearby roads were used for dog sledding, sleigh rides, and this absolutely bonkers sport called ski-yoring, where you get pulled behind a horse on skis. They even built a small ski jump close to where the stables are located today. All of this investment and publicity achieved its desired effect. Yosemite was now on the map for winter recreation. It was a full-fledged, all-weather, four-season destination. And as the culmination of that journey, Yosemite would bid to host the 1932 Olympic Winter Games. It would be competing in its bid with the likes of Oslo, Montreal, Denver, Minneapolis, Duluth, Bear Mountain, Lake Tahoe, and Lake Placid. Stiff competition. If a US city won the bid, it would be nationally recognized and forever distinguished as the first ever host of a Winter Olympiad in the United States. The world was also in the midst of a crushing economic depression, giving the games a weighty and pressure-filled expectation of success. It was to this backdrop that Yosemite bid to host the Winter Olympic Games. For his part, Tresidder thought Yosemite had good odds of winning the bid. Thanks in part to his efforts, it had great facilities, it was already a popular tourist destination, and the area had plenty of lodging to accommodate the influx of visitors. But would those efforts be enough to win the Olympic bid? Unfortunately, no. On April 29, 1929, the International Olympic Committee announced that Lake Placid, New York would host the third Olympic Winter Games. They cited the small village's world-class facilities and unanimous government support, including that of then New York Governor Franklin Delano Roosevelt, as a major selling point in their decision. It was felt that New York also had more experience hosting competitive athletic events. Lake Placid would actually go on to host the 1980 Winter Olympics as well, while Yosemite continued to grow into one of America's most iconic and revered national parks, albeit with no more Olympic bids to follow. And for what it's worth, Yosemite's failure to host the 1932 Winter Olympics didn't stop them from continuing to develop winter recreation there. They actually hosted the West Coast speed skating tryouts for the very Olympics they had just lost the bid for. The Chinquapin ski area continued to attract visitors, and in 1935, the Badger Pass ski area opened, attracting 10,000 skiers in its first year of operation. So it was not to be for Yosemite, which to this day remains the only national park to have ever bid to host the Olympics. As the games have grown, the possibility of this happening again at any park has grown more and more remote. But the story of the Yosemite Olympics is a fascinating one nonetheless. A national park bid to host the Olympics. These are places today we associate with natural beauty, rugged landscapes, and remote locations. Yet here was Yosemite bidding to host the most cosmopolitan of sporting competitions. It speaks to a different time, a time when we manage our parks differently. Today, instead of bidding to host the world's premier sporting competition, Yosemite struggles under the weight of mass visitation, aging infrastructure, staff shortages, and chronic underfunding. Certainly, no Olympic bids are coming anytime soon. But we can look back with fond memories on Yosemite's 1932 Olympic bid as a curious and altogether amusing footnote in national park history. If you want to learn more about the world's protected places, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps me bring more park stories like this one to more people. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.